Because praying, just there's something about praying. I still don't get it actually. I still don't know if it's not right or wrong, but if it's something that I should be doing personally. I don't know, because praying just seems like sometimes it just seems like not taking responsibility.
You would rather change come from the outside rather than you having to do something to make this prayer come true.
It just feels like I'm not accepting things as they are, or not putting in the effort to change it myself. Instead, I'm just being lazy and go, oh please, someone, God or whatever, please change it. Yeah.
And I think that would be the same for a wish as well. It's like, in order to wish for something, you first assume or you take for granted it's not good enough.
And it feels selfish as well to me, actually, praying, for something to happen to myself. Maybe praying for other people is a different thing, praying for happiness for others. I don't see that as being a selfish thing, but praying something for myself, it just seems, I don't know, a little bit self-centered, wanting things to happen a certain way, but I'm not sure if it is, because I think I deserve to be happy, to have certain wishes come true as well, in a way. Otherwise, why am I here? I mean, not in the sense that I should be happy or whatever.
Like entitlement.
But I still need to live. I still need to do things, to behave like a human, accomplish things.
I'm coming to that in a roundabout way. It's like, I reject selfish notions when it occurs to me that I'm being selfish, right? But the question occurred to me not too long ago, actually. So still, the dust is still settling, right? It's like, and I think I talked to you about this before. It's like, what would I want for somebody else, right? And I really want for other people to have a wish come true, or for a prayer to be answered. Just enough to give them that hope. It's almost like, however realistic or unrealistic hopes may be, it feels as though if a person has in their worldview active hopes, like there's hopes that they are currently entertaining, that they're working toward and inspired by, it seems as though having that part of the mind active is good, is healthy.
And we were talking about hope with Andrew, and it was a good thing.
Yeah. Right? So I hope for other people that they have hopes, right? And I wish for other people that they have wishes. And for a prayer to be answered once in a person's life, just enough for them to question, like, was that my prayer that did that? Or was it good luck? I don't know. But to have that part of their mind open seems like a good thing. I would wish that for others. And so why would I wish for certain things for everyone else and then preclude myself from having them? Tell myself, oh, it's just selfish. But for everybody else, I want these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of, in this roundabout way, throw this idea of Shaun into the mix, into the lot of humanity. And say, well, he should have everything that I wish everybody should have. Not more than anybody else, right? But just say, I want everyone to live a good, happy life. And everyone includes this guy, Shaun. So I guess I wish for that too,
I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong about praise. It's just like money, say, for instance. It's just, if we're praying for our well-being so that we could be better than others, richer,
right.
Maybe win the lottery and like improve those people who've been looking down on us for once, that sort of thing, or just really just a genuine and sincere prayer for happiness, for overall happiness for people and for ourselves.
Yeah, for me there's a difference. It's like, if ever I have a desire to have things go my way, even if it's to have a prayer answered or a wish granted or something, if I zoom out, it looks as though I'm in the center of the universe, right? And lots of energy and forces and stuff are like I'm sucking them into me. You know, like I'm trying to draw money my way, or I'm trying to draw good luck my way, or have the whole world sort of conform to me in the center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there's these other times where I have this genuine kind of heartfelt wish for the well-being of anybody. And that seems, the opposite seems to radiate from me outward. But not even from me. I don't seem to be the starting point of those wishes. I find out that there's a wish going on within me. I find out that I love the idea of other people coming into good fortune and for the world going their way and unexpectedly, surprisingly well, and for good relationships between people. And it seems to just radiate outward, as if I would even maybe take a hit for that to happen. So that some of my energy would leave me in order for that. And so that on the one hand, it can look like both are just wishes or both are just prayers. But there really is a difference. It's like either I'm trying to get from the world something, and the world is not providing, so the world is inadequate somehow. I'm trying to, I'm trying to have things change so that there's a net benefit in my experience. But then there's this other wish where it's like, even if I die a moment later, I still want these things to happen, which means I'm not really in the picture. Although, I guess, there's this kind of side wish that I would be there to see it happen. Like if I wish well for people, that somehow, even if I died, that there'd be some conscious part of me that's just on the sidelines, seeing it actually happen, because there's a great joy in the idea of seeing good unfolding.
So for someone who doesn't really belong to a religion, I mean, that's you and me, of course. But who do we really pray to? Who do you pray to?
Well, I was wanting to ask you that. Is there such a prayer that doesn't have a omnipotent consciousness or being that's listening to a prayer? Prayer is
prayer. It's
like a conversation.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
It's
For a greater force out there that's beyond us, of course, to do wonders. Yeah, I guess.
That's the difference between a prayer and a wish for me. Wish could just be, you could be the only person in the universe,
yeah,
and still have a wish, and it would be valid. Right? A prayer, and this might be just a definition thing, like someone out there might feel the same way about prayer. It's like it's just finding out that you want something. I've always thought of prayer as being asking somebody, right? Is communicating with a force or something conscious, something that can hear the prayer, understand the prayer, think about it maybe, and decide whether it's going to grant it or not. And that's why I haven't prayed. I struggle to remember the last time I prayed.
Yeah, me too. Although I used to pray a lot when I was a kid.
To who, might I ask?
To whatever they told me to pray to. Whoever they told me to pray to. The adult. Yeah. You've done prayers, right? At our place. Yeah, you pray to this whole list of divinities and
Yeah, but remember, that's in a language I don't understand.
yeah.
So for me, it's like...
So pretty much everyone. From like God to like, well...
thousands of deities
and thousands of deities and your ancestors,
Yeah.
your forerunners, just giving gratitude and all those things. I see it as a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but yeah. Hey, but these are things that I've never really come face to face with. Right? This days and yeah. So I don't know. But I do realize that there is some resistance as I age, right? As I grow older. There's more and more resistance when it comes to imagination.
You mean imagining the deities you're praying to?
Yeah, or imagine anything. Yeah, I become a very, very rational person. There's not much room for imagination or things that I cannot validate or verify.
What do you mean? Give me an example.
Just like what you said, yeah, God, like a God, or angels, or things that I haven't really experienced.
But is that, and I kind of know the answer already, but
Yeah.
Is that because you dismiss the imagination?
Yeah, I do. I
And
dismiss it.
because to imagine such a thing is to put limits on it.
I don't know. Nah, it's more like
A distraction or something.
even though I think I have a really, really open mind compared to a lot of people, right? I still think that subconsciously, deep down, whenever I try to imagine something, I just shut myself off. I go, nah, that's
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So
But
the
so I catch
logical
myself
mind
doing that.
kicks
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
and
always the
says,
logical one.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a very good thing, actually.
What you would prefer a kind of a naivety to entertain the imaginings as though they might be glimpses of the reality.
I mean, not even that. It's more like I don't need to know if it's real or not, but I would love to have the freedom to imagine without thinking about if it's real, not real. Just imagine like a kid. A kid doesn't think, oh, this is real or this is not real. They just imagine.
Like the Little Prince, right?
Yeah, until the adults come along and go, this is nonsense. There's no such thing as Santa, or this and that. And oh no, it's more like a kid playing with toys. When you're a kid, if you're a girl, you play with Barbie dolls. If you're a guy, if you're a boy, you play with Ninja Turtles and you just make up a story. Oh, he's fighting him, blah 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 blah. They know it's not real.
Yeah.
But they know that but nothing stops them from imagining. There's a sense of freedom there.
But hang on, you are able to entertain what-if scenarios. If I said, imagine that there's beings that live in some other non-physical dimension, and and I could go on, but you would be able to suspend that in your imagination and do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be constantly getting raised by this logic.
Yeah, it would. It would for me. Really, yeah. Not in a really, not in a way that I would just go like, that's nonsense. Yeah.
Okay.
But in more of a, it's not necessary sort of way.
Right, like this is a distraction or.
Yeah, this is a distraction. I don't know if it's there or not. I can't prove, and so I better not waste my time thinking about
Waste
such
your
things.
time, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. I should be more focused on things that are accessible to me right now.
What about, alright, so it is, I guess, an area of imagination is to wonder. So I get that if it's an area where you kind of know some things about it, then the logical part of the mind steps in and says, no, people can't fly, So stop trying to imagine like angels being physically really there with these wings. It just doesn't make sense that you're flying around above the clouds and no one's discovered them, right? But if we're going to things like what happens after death, where there's like very little evidence any which way, right? Can't your mind wonder? I wonder if there is a kind of a, life after death or reincarnation, or, does the logical mind kick in there and say,
well, it's really complicated actually, because if you think about it, the imagination and beliefs are two different things as well, right? You can imagine but not believe in it,
mm-hmm.
right? But there's a possibility that it might be real. I mean, that's how all scientific discoveries were made, right? First there was an imagination. What if it was like this, like this? But I don't know if imagination is a good thing or not. Imagination is just stories, right? Yeah, everything is imagined. Money is imagined, right? We put a value on money. That's like in *Sapiens*.
And also people live their lives, make decisions based on what they imagine the outcomes will be, not because of what they know will happen, but just that they imagine that things will go badly if I do a bad thing, or things will go well if I do good things. And it's on the basis of that imagining that they live their life here and now, right? So imagination plays a large part in people's everyday life, even if it's not just them sitting and fantasizing about spiritual things.
There are two different ways to look at it, right? One is biocentric view, right? Everything is
in the mind.
In the mind. How we look at it, the whole world is in your mind, pretty much. And like what Buddha said, the different level of heavens. In Buddhism, they say the different level of heavens, even in this realm, all the realms are a manifestation of the imagination or the vibration, or whatever you want to put it, however you want to put it, of the dweller's mind, right? Their thoughts, their vibes and everything. So we create this world that we live in, right? That's pretty biocentric. That's as biocentric as it gets. Then the other one is that imagination and all these stories are just simply delusions, right? And there is one cold hard truth out there that has nothing to do with, well, not nothing to do, that's the ultimate truth, the theory of everything, the unchanging. So all these imaginations and all these stories and everything is stopping us from
I see.
from getting the truth, which also happens to be Buddha's teaching. He said this in these three realms, there's no peace to be found. There's no peace.
What are the three realms
There's
again?
no lasting peace to be found. It's the desire realm, there's the form, and then the formless.
Even the formless. Huh?
Yeah.
So
the
these are
ethereal.
these are the
worlds.
domains of the mind, right? It's in the mind where we form desires. It's in the mind where we form even the idea of formless, to give it a name and to entertain it as a something.
Yeah.
Right? And what was the other one? The form.
Desire, form, and formless.
And we conceive of form in the mind.
Yeah.
So these three realms are confined to the mind. And for as long as we entertain imagination and
There's
fantasies
no
and
eternity
ideas,
to be found.
all of that takes place in the mind, and therefore we never see if there's anything beyond the mind.
But then the question is, do we need to leave all this behind in order to find the ultimate truth? Or when we find the ultimate truth, it would naturally include all of this?
I like the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it kind of assumes that you have to sort of find it first in order to find out that everything in the mind was kind of okay.
Yeah.
right?
Yep. It's kind of okay. There's nothing wrong with imagination or
Just that it
just
is
that
just imagination.
just
It
that
just
we
has its
see it
purpose.
as the absolute truth or whatever. We just haven't found. Well, I think in the Christian, I think Christians would call it God. Yeah.
The ultimate.
Yeah, the ultimate. Once you find God, everything else is fine. Yeah. All you need to do is return to God.
Yeah, but then for the Christians that entails a process. And it's really just in the formatting of the words, which will get stuck on, I'm sure. Just to say, once you find God, then all will be revealed to be, fine as
Yep.
it is. So, just to frame it that way is to say that you must do something, right? You must go on some quest, or you must venture in some way to find God, right? As though God is not here available right now, but is somewhere and by some means available.
And did you say that the kingdom of heaven is within you as well?
I tend to think of the fish in water, right? Who has always been in water, has been born in water, has lived his whole life in water, continues to live in water, and will very likely continue to live in water and die in water, and has never been separate from water, right?
Mm.
And has never had any cause to think about this thing called water.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then some other fish comes along and says, hey, there's this thing called water, and if you venture to the depths, you'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if you go to the surface, you'll find it, but somehow you can find this thing called water. And once you've found water, then you'll know your place in this world. You'll know. And the water, he'll go on to say, is all around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's within you. And it's breathing through your gills, and it's everywhere at once. And you are part of this, and it is a part of you. They're inseparable.
So it is a realization. It isn't something that you attain. I mean, it isn't something that you possess in the end. It's not like I'm seeking for a thing. It's more like a realization that it's really happening, right? But if you look at it, but it does sound like a paradox when you put it that way, because everything is perfect, and God is the kingdom of heaven is already within you. And you don't need to go to heaven because it's already in you. You are in heaven. But yet, there are things to do in order to realize that. It's the same thing for Buddhism, right?
There always does seem to be something amiss, something that's going wrong.
All is already one. All is already one. It's already part of the oneness. There was never a separation to begin with, but yet there are so many rules and
rituals,
abstinence and
methods,
paths to get there. Which is not there in the first place. Right? So it's paradoxical. But when you say that is a realization, then it sort of makes sense.
But I could even, and it's silly, but you could even say, so one person says to another, there's a realization that you can have, which will, satisfy your truth-seeking, will put an end to your suffering or concerns and so on. And again, there is a means by which you can have this realization, and there again is created first of all, the notion that you don't have it now, that you're missing something important. Two, that there's something important that you can have, that can be added somehow. And thirdly, by dint of both of those, that there is a path from one to the other, which will take time and usually some kind of practice, right, or process, letting go, and they'll say, for some people that happens instantaneously, but for the rest of us, we can spend our whole lives trying to move from the have-nots to the haves, or the unrealized to the realized, from those who know, often those who don't know to those who know. And all of that is endless, and it only brings endless suffering. Yeah. So I prefer to think, I've thought this for a long time, or just kind of felt it intuitively. Not that that means that it's true in any way. It's just that despite whatever I think, I have always found this to be preferable. I've been in favor of the idea that if there is such a thing called truth, or a meaning of life, that first of all, it must apply to all things that live. I just can't stand the notion that most people never live properly, and that pretty much all animals don't live properly because they're not smart enough to know the truth, right? And, like mentally disabled people will never know the truth because they can't put two and two together and understand this complex philosophy, right? Never like those ideas. And so I go for the simple idea that creatures, animals, insects, microscopic organisms, are completely and utterly at home in the universe. There's no actual suffering going on there. There's no soul in there that is crying for redemption, or is being tortured in any way. That their life is somehow part and parcel with the comings and goings of the universe. But then it's only me, and perhaps a percentage of human beings, who have come to think of this problem of truth and how to find it. And it's we who create therein an endless suffering for ourselves, because we come to believe that we don't know enough, we don't know the truth, that we're out of place, that there are important questions that remain unanswered, and that really, if somehow we never entered into that, we would automatically and by default be living in truth like the fish lives in the water. But the concern there is, like, once you create these questions of truth and meaning and begin the pursuit of finding it, it doesn't seem you can reverse that and unask the questions, right? It doesn't seem you can go back to being a child who just is fine with how things are.
Well, what you said sounded like, okay, you say truth is point A, alright? 100 meters away, most of the beings are sentient beings, insects, people who don't ever think about truth and others, alright? So truth, point A, point B, 100 meters away.
Okay.
And it sounds like we are point C, at point C, which is 200 meters away from the truth.
I would say creatures are at point A already. They're already in truth. They are truth. There's never a separation.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that they are not at point A. People are still unsatisfied. People never thought about truth or anything. They think about other stuff. They're still suffering. Animals are still suffering. Even my clients are suffering. They worry about food and all this. They still, they suffer in their own ways, and they have no way out of it. They can only just go through the suffering because there's no higher wisdom to understand, to see the bigger picture. So I see it as, truth, point A, sentient beings, most of them in point B, and we are point C, furthest away from the truth. People who actually question and wants to seek answer. But I see it more as like us being in point A. and the other sentient beings being point B, those who never asked, insects and animals and others, they're still suffering in their own ways, but they never asked. So, but it's not, but point A, the truth, is the static point. It's not something that is out there, waiting to be found or possessed. Yeah, but we are sort of moving back to truth, not like moving closer, as in like we are closer to being possessing the truth. Yeah? I think we are moving closer to the truth, in the sense that you are right about. I suspect that you're right about when you're in the, like, when you found truth and never thought about, oh, is this the truth? Then you're dead. And you realize that it's always been there. It's just that you're too far away from it. You ventured out and tried to seek truth, but it was never there to begin with. And we have come to realize this a little bit more than people in the furthest point, the sentient beings. But in a sense, in a way, they are trying to find truth as well. Like, majority of these people are trying to find it through.
But you would say unconsciously.
Yeah, unconsciously.
They think they're trying to buy a new car, but they're
exactly.
looking for.
Yeah, through money, fame, status, and all this, they think that will find them happiness.
Right.
But in a sense, that happiness.
And happiness is code for the ultimate.
Yes, the ultimate.
What will satisfy.
Yeah,
what will
fulfill.
last,
the sort of happiness that will last forever.
Yeah.
That sort of
an
peace,
eternity.
contentment.
Yeah. But they never conceptualize it this way.
Yeah.
They think it's about money and.
Yeah. And then there are people like us who realize that, oh man, this is wrong. All this money and fame and status, like, they're not going to last forever. So you take a step back.
Yeah.
Instead of forward, because truth is somewhere out there if you take a step forward. But truth is here. So we take a step back and we say, like, those are not the things that we really need.
So
there
then,
must be something else.
It should follow that the more steps we take back and the further inward we go, that truth we might find not as something to possess, but something that is abiding and always has been.
Yep.
In the core, at the deepest point, at the bottom, at the underlying, at the ground of being, right?
So it's not actually moving forward, it's taking a step back.
It's still
back.
But now, would you say then that a person who is far, far away, who's like just pursuing pleasures, temporary pleasures, and not knowing what else to look for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that person suffers more than a person who is looking within for answers but hasn't found any yet? So both seeking, both desiring, both struggling, both suffering, right? Would you say is it a correct term to say that one is suffering more than another?
No, depends.
Or do you think that we all suffer?
Depends.
100%, like
No. I think it totally depends on the person. A person who is like fanatic about seeking truth might be suffering more than the person just, I don't know, living a normal life and never thinking about such things.
And there are people with a sunny disposition who really seem to suffer a lot less than me.
Yeah, exactly. So
they still suffer, but it's like far less often and far less painfully and deeply. So suffering, you could say.
There are people who live a good life of their lives. Yeah, they're sufficient in every single way. Yeah, money and nice. They got shelter, food, money. Yeah, and they are by nature really simple people. Yeah, live a happy life, simple life. Yeah, and there are people who are fanatic about seeking truth. Right? You just go crazy and just try everything, but still suffer in the end.
Not just in the end.
Oh yeah, along the way.
All the way.
Yeah, along the way. Yeah, of course. But I don't know.
So there is such a thing as more suffering and less suffering. It's not just that we suffer.
I really don't know. You look at people with mental disability. born with mental disability. They don't know anything about death, a lot of them. Yeah? You tell them, oh, you got cancer, they'll just be like, and they'll still be asking you about what they're gonna have for dinner, and they're suffering much lesser than we are because we know death, and they don't. But so, who's closer to the truth? I don't know.
What do you think then about what J.K. says about it's not my suffering? So he takes a sweeping look at humanity throughout history. People's children die and they suffer, and everybody and various things go wrong, and everybody thinks that their particular suffering is their own.
Mm-hmm.
But he suggests that, he insists, right, that it's not my suffering, it's suffering, and it's the lot of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it just takes a. Do you think that there's two kinds then? There's like the suffering that we all share, that like even people who aren't even born yet will definitely go through, and then there's the particular suffering in each of our lives that nobody else will ever understand or be able to,
I think it's one in many. Same. Just many sufferings, but all connected. That's all.
Now, let me ask you this. Is it possible for a life to be lived, any life at all, that does not entail suffering?
Don't know. Never seen any.
And including like insects and stuff,
Yeah,
You
never
think-
seen any.
everything seems to
Yeah,
struggle in some way
Even a baby cries and screams, right?
at the moment of birth.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that's a sign of suffering, but I mean, if you compare it to an adult crying and screaming, yeah, it pretty much says that I'm suffering. Yeah,
Yeah.
better feed me, better do something. Yeah, I'm too hot, too cold.
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong. Do something about it.
The first thought.
Mm-hmm.
Something's wrong.
Even without any rational thinking, or any like,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's just an all-out
or
rejection.
any indoctrination. Yeah, that's just.
I can still feel it, I've thought back on being a baby and crying, and to the extent that I can relate to it. I can't say I can remember it, because I don't have any vivid recollection, but the feeling is the same, as you say, as being an adult when things are really bad. And there's just a mind and body rejection of the whole thing. Even of the body itself, it's just like, this sucks, reject. And that comes out as tears and crying and even physical pushing away of the world. Yeah. So I would say that a baby suffers. But there's the suffering, right? Didn't Buddha say that there are two thorns to our suffering, and only one can be removed?
I don't know. There was
Yes.
a bit.
Well, I heard this, and I have to assume it's from you. But that
No.
the first thorn is that things go wrong in our lives. We encounter pain, and all the things that are outside of our control. But shit happens, I guess. Right? That's the first thorn. The second thorn is how we deal with that. How we think of it, how we interpret it. It's some glass half full, glass half empty kind of thing. And that we have some degree of control over. We can remove that thorn. For example, if you should step on a thorn, let's just say, right, there will be pain. There's nothing you can't just say there will not be pain. Right? But all of the thoughts that for different people would fire off after the fact. One person might think, this shouldn't have happened to me. this never happens. Why should this shouldn't have happened today? Of all days, today when I've got this important thing I need my foot for. And so they suffer it doubly, and they suffer the pain like anybody else, but they suffer their impossibility to undo it, to reverse time and have it not happen. And then another person with a sunny disposition, let's say, will say, ouch, right? And then pretty much that's the last thought about it. And then they'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could say that the first person suffers a great deal more, but that they might not have. And they might have some control in future about how they go about interpreting the various pains in their life. And that would put suffering into two categories. There's like the inevitable suffering, which might be what J.K. talks about as being unavoidable. The lot of just the fact of being a human means that you're going to suffer. But then all the other sufferings that are needless, which if one could just take a step back and look at things, from a broader perspective, or just have some patience to allow anger and other emotions to pass before they respond to the situation, they might suffer a great deal less. So to an extent, suffering can be reduced in this world.
What's the question here?
Would you agree with that interpretation, that there could be two categories of suffering? So that a certain amount of suffering is to be expected, is normal, is predictable, and might therefore be acceptable. Whereas there's a whole lot of suffering which is, in a sense, optional.
Yeah, of course. I mean, who can disagree with that, right? It all comes down to the attitude.
Well, I think I could have.
It all
About
comes down to the attitude.
a few weeks ago,
Mm.
actually it was last week, I finally decided that life is suffering. I finally decided to agree with Buddha. Yeah. And I'm 35 years old, right? And I have managed to avoid coming to that conclusion for 35 years. And have preferred, in however much naivety you'll grant me, have preferred to think that it's possible for there to be life with absolutely no suffering, neither thorn, right? That bad things don't even need to happen. And now it just seems so silly. But I am a testament to the possibility of a person living right through childhood, right into adulthood, without ever accepting the notion of life as suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And believing that it might be possible to arrange things in such a way that a person can be free from all suffering for the rest of their life, and that humanity and all creatures can be set free from all suffering for all eternity. This has always been my preference and my fantasy and so on. So it's with a reluctance that I came to.
I've accepted the fact that life is suffering.
Long time ago?
Yeah, for quite a while now. Can't remember when, of course, but yeah. But I see it as sometimes I see it as a beautiful thing. Because we know we're dying, that's why life is special. Yeah? Because there's sufferings, that's why we know what happiness is. Yeah, it's just the dance of duality once again. Yeah? The dance of life. Yeah. If you live your day in the best case scenario that you can come up with, yeah, if you do that every day, you get bored. There'll be no more happiness left. So attitude, back to attitude, right? So first of all, there are things that are beyond our control, right? You get a car accident, someone hit you, someone crash into you, and you lose a leg or whatever. You can't control that. That's beyond your control. And then there's the attitude, how you choose to face it. I guess that's, in a way, that seems like the free will. Christians talk about it a lot. Yeah, there's the free will there.
But can't a person find themselves waking up in hospital, for example, with that leg amputated? And then, so you might say at that point, there's a choice as to how they're going to, what attitude they're going to have here. But what if the person gets angry about it and then finds out, shit, I'm angry, and calls that part of the circumstance as well? So not only do I have this, lost my leg, been in a car accident, but I also am so angry about it. And so, I mean, they find themselves to be angry. They didn't choose to be angry. So they haven't chosen their attitude. At what point do they get to choose, do they get to go one way or another? So, let's follow it through, right? I wake up in hospital. I've lost a leg. I have a flashback to the car accident, see it happen and how, and I get angry because I feel like it shouldn't have happened. Okay. This is just a thought that comes to mind. That idiot driver shouldn't have this and that, and now here I am, and this sucks, and I hate this. Right?
So at what point do they find free will? Do they have excess of free will, to decide how they should feel, how their attitude should be? At the point where they find God, I believe. Yeah. Where they find true divinity in the true one, so whatever you want to call it.
But I may go the rest of my life without having that.
Yeah, but if you see it finding God means that you see the whole picture, that you see you're connected to everyone else. We share the same suffering. Life is fleeting. With or without that leg, you're still gonna die. And you're part of the bigger thing.
This is where it gets interesting for me, though. It's like, we used to talk about special powers, and like magical powers to be able to change things at will, telekinesis, whatever. Right? And I always like the idea, right, that if you knew how to access this power, right, let's give whatever power it is, the power to change your own attitude just for this circumstance. If you really saw things in a broader enough perspective to gain access, to realize that you have this power, simultaneously you would also be in a position of acceptance with the circumstance, such that you wouldn't actually want to use the power to change it. That if you found God and saw the whole picture, that you would find all that has happened, all that is happening, and all that will happen to be good, to be just nice. And so even though you may have finally accessed free will, that there wouldn't be any turmoil that would make you want to go one way or another. But perhaps there would just be either like a going with the flow, or a passive observance of it, or just an abiding. Yeah.
I guess what would make a person really feel better is to is their faith in God, right? Or whatever religion you belong to, that there is God will be there for me no matter what happens. Yeah, God will be there waiting for me when I die. God will still be in my life. God still loves me. You know, the ultimate goodness that we have, I don't know if it's an imagination or not, but it's the ultimate goodness that mankind has managed to come up with. You know, there's this being or this power out there who will always be there for me. You know, who will always love me, be there for me, and even if I do suffer, even if I die, God will be there waiting for me, you know, holding my hands and, you know, bringing me to a nice place. Or yeah, it's a thing that everyone believes in, every single person in this world, yeah, regardless if they know it or not. And they're all looking. Remember that saying? No matter how perverted a desire is, it's always a desire to seek for light, yeah, through one way or the other. Just some a lot more perverted and sadistic than the rest, of course. But everyone is looking to be satisfied, to be happy in his or her own way. Yeah, just that we can't find it and we get lost. Yeah. But it seems that that's the common denomination here. We are all trying to be happy. Yeah. Like truly happy. We are all seeking for something somehow, always. I mean, curiosity. That's how curiosity was born, I guess. You know, we're always seeking for something higher, for something better, for the unchanging happiness, to be contented in a way. We are all seeking. It's a game of hide and seek. I don't know why.
It could be something so simple as because all of the creatures who didn't died, and only the ones that just kept looking, survived, and here we are. You know, not because there's a special purpose to that seeking, but just that seeking got us through. You know, if you look at in evolution terms, you look at a single-celled organism who seemingly doesn't have a clue about the wider world, right? It doesn't have a brain to store memories and form complex understandings of the cosmos and its place in it and so on. But yet, in that petri dish, still seeks, it still moves, right? And it responds to its environment, apparently trying to get away from predators, avoid destruction, and trying to consume what's necessary, you know, to keep going.
So it's more of a biological thing.
Even the smallest thing is in motion, right? It's not just stagnant. It's in motion, and apparently seems to be trying for something, you know, striving.
So would you say that even biologically, we're all seeking for eternity? We're trying to live as long as possible, even survival.
I think to say for it to be a matter of trying to get somewhere, to have a goal, is to already have a sophisticated enough brain or mind to imagine a goal and then strive for it.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that even if we don't have a goal, we are just compulsed by our biology to keep moving.
I have a question. Why do humans why do any creatures have survival instincts? What does it do for them
I don't know.
to survive? I mean, why do everyone, including insects and animals?
Yeah. Well, just as a cartoon example.
Why do all beings want to live longer? If life is suffering, there's so much suffering going on. Wouldn't it be better just to end it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one rationale, right?
Yeah, I mean, us living longer is not going to make.
Doesn't necessarily mean quality, does it?
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the future is beneficial for the future generations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are hoarding all the resources. You know?
Could be on a
So
sinking
if
ship.
we really care about to mankind, yeah, to prolong the reign of humankind, shouldn't we die earlier? Wouldn't that be part of our instinct?
There is someone who thinks that to have children is actually to do harm, because he can't remember his name, but
Because we're overpopulated.
no, it's just that. It's just like he sees life as being a net negative. That to not exist is better. To exist and live.
Mm-hmm.
Because to live is to suffer. To not live is to not suffer. And so to bring children into the world is to actually bring suffering into the world needlessly. And that people should pretty much just sit down and wait to die and let that be the end of it.
So it's better to not love at all.
I don't agree with him,
Yeah.
but I find it difficult to argue his point just on rational terms. But if just as a cartoon example, if you just imagine a species, a creature that is just sort of going about its business, and then I don't know, the next generation of this creature is there's a mutation. Right? 2 mutations. One mutation is that the creature has no drive for more, right? Like it'll eat if food just like crawls in its mouth, but otherwise it won't go looking for food, right? It's just completely contented as it is. Right? And the other one, the mutation, is to strive without even knowing why, but just to keep looking for more food, you know, and to feel endlessly dissatisfied with what it currently has. Even if it finishes eating, it just keep looking for food. Right? Now both of them are able to procreate, but the first mutation doesn't, because there's no drive, and it just sits there and it starves to death. Then that mutation fails the test of time. It doesn't need a predator to come along. It doesn't have what it takes to keep going. Now the other one is equally pointlessly, just like the first one is pointlessly sitting there, not because it's come to any realization, just no internal drive. The other one, equally, not self-actualized, nothing enlightening going on there, just compulsed to keep looking. This one ends up surviving, because when food is scarce, when less fierce creatures aren't looking because they just ate, so they just sit around, this one's still looking.
Yeah, but my question is...
We might just be the creatures that did that.
Yeah, but my question is, why is death a bad thing? Why is it bad for the first creature who just simply died off?
Dunno, can't say.
Because you said it failed, right?
Or
So
I just mean that I
it failed to...
failed to reproduce. It's not around today.
Mm-hmm. So why is that a bad thing? That's why.
No,
that's what I want to
no,
know.
no.
No, why do we humans see death as a bad thing? Yeah.
I think that there's...
I guess that's what you call the will to live, huh?
I think there's 100 million reasons why people would conclude death is a bad thing. But I don't think most people think long enough about it to actually arrive at any reasoning.
So it would mean...
It's just, if you have a hope at all about anything, death pretty much ruins that. So to the extent that you are hopeful or desirous even, you want something, well, death can thwart that. Death can thwart anything that you hold dear for the future. It wouldn't matter if a person were completely committed to what was currently going on in their life. Like right now, like Eckhart Tolle, completely absorbed in the now, and in the now, you happen to be alive. There is no death in Eckhart Tolle's world, right? But to everyone else who just needs tomorrow...
I think death is a bad thing because I think deep down, be it, regardless if the person believes it or not, I think we all, except the ones who are suicidal, we all believe that life is beautiful to a certain extent, right? It's worth holding on to. That's why we think we see death as a bad thing, right? There must be something worth holding on to in order for you to want to keep living, right?
It is amazing that despite all the suffering that life entails, just about everybody will hang in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And on each person's deathbed who's lucky enough to have a moment, right, to consider it, I bet you'll find 100 million reasons why they want us to keep going, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Each person holds on to different things. Yeah. And so for each thing that a person holds, there is something in life that is worth enduring the suffering of life, just to keep holding on to, just to witness.
There is nothing really so scary about death in itself. You know, there's nothing scary about the unknown, right? We talked about this. But it is scary to lose something that you have known so well, come to know so well.
So maybe in most people's minds, though, it'd be good to get a real, question out there and get as many views as possible on death, right? But maybe people's concerns aren't so much about death and dying and whatever that is to experience, but that most people are concerned with what they have and hold dear being taken from them somehow. So rather than the death part, of the actual annihilation or the cessation of being, which is difficult to imagine, and most people don't use those words. But just that there's things in life I love, and I will lose them. I don't want to lose them, whether it's through death or other means.
But yet, so many religions are telling you that you need to lose them. You need to detach, be rid of your attachment.
To die before you die.
Yeah, to die before you die. But I see it as a rather ridiculous suggestion. Because who could do it unless they have a glimpse of what comes after that? What comes after I've let go of whatever I'm so attached to? Yeah, which is why I've been trying to practice meditation and astral projection and all this. I just want to have a glimpse, because I think it's quite impossible for me personally to really come to terms with death unless I have a glimpse of what's deeper.
Some
what's
promise,
beyond. Yeah, some sort of, Otherwise, it would just go against all my instincts. To want to let go of everything, because I no one's promised me anything.
I've also practiced letting go of things, right, and found it to be hugely beneficial. On the other side of letting go of stuff, there just only seems to be positivity, right? But that's for all the bad stuff. It's like you find out that you're holding on to negative emotions. You find out that you're holding on to feelings of regret or injustice. You want certain things you want to be redeemed in certain ways for things that went badly earlier in your life and so on. But then, and those, on the other side of those things, and I think it's easy enough to convince a person that it's worth trying letting go of those things. Yes, you're in pain, yes, it sucks, but let's just let go of any negative emotion we're feeling about that. Just let it be and let go of that. And if a person tries that, then there's a certain liberation on the other side of that, right? But then after practicing that enough, and you're like, being able to exercise and use a certain muscle a certain way, you get good at it. You get good at recognizing that I'm holding this thing. Let's see what happens if I let go. And then I've asked myself, is there anything that I can't let go of? Right? Can I let go of everything?
Mm-hmm.
And it stops at the things that I love. Is that if the whole universe was just falling away, right? All the good and all the bad, and there was no reason to hold on. There was no hope of successfully holding on. Like a black hole is just sucking it all in anyway, right? I would reach for and I would hold the things that I love. And there doesn't seem to be anything that can convince me not to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my practice has stopped. It's like, I can't let go of what I love. Yeah.
But remember, in Buddhism, even Buddha and Bodhisattvas, the thing that represents them is compassion. It seems to be the ultimate love, right?
Right.
So, in Christianity too, love. So, maybe it's not such a bad thing after all. Maybe it's something that we ought to hold on to. But not in a selfish way.
Yeah, of course.
In a bigger way.
I do wonder though, whether there is a, like, aren't I just holding on because I'm afraid, Even though I'm holding on to things that I truly love, there's no question of my love for these things, for these people. But I know of a love that doesn't need to hold on. I know of a love that just radiates like the sun shines, but doesn't care to know what it shines on. It just shines for free, And I know of this. But it's different to me holding on to stuff. And I wonder if perhaps there's just a residual fear going on. And that's why I'm holding on to the things I love. It's not that I should let go of loving, right? It's just that I'm loving plus holding on. And the holding on might be able to be relinquished.
I think there might be another reason. It's because you realize that there is suffering, right? I mean, okay, picture this. If your family, if your daughters, right, they're promised to be like they're promised to have a great life. You know for sure that they're going to be fine, they're going to be quiet, and they're going to be peaceful, happy, and all this. You find it a lot easier to let it go, right? Yeah, because a lot of parents, they can't let it go because they'll be thinking about how their kids are going to move on without them, and if everyone's going to be okay, everyone's all with your passing away, disrupt their life in a horrible way, I guess that's why maybe Bodhisattvas choose to come back again and again, for that reason. I don't see it as a bad thing. It's not so much of an attachment, it's more like I wish, comes back to prayer, I wish that I could be here longer to just serve them better, to serve the world better, to be more useful to the world. It's a kind of wish, or a good kind of wish, I guess. And if there is reincarnation, I would love to come back to this world, to help out again, so that beings don't have to suffer so much. Okay.